First speaker is going to be Mark Yoshimoto. He's our Central Valley sales rep, and he's going to get us started.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to briefly go over WiseCon and our product DropControl. Start off. There you go. WiseCon was founded in 2006 in Villa del Mar, Chile. We've been in California since 2015. Currently, there's over 200,000 acres deployed with automation and monitoring throughout the throughout the world, and that's using around 6,500 different nodes. We have 20 distributors in the United States, and 15 of them are currently in California. There's over 1,000 users within 5 different countries. That's the US, Chile, Argentina, Peru, and Mexico. Locally here in Fresno, we have a support team as well as a warehouse. You can give us a call. Happy to help you. There's usually 5 or 6 guys that they can walk you through either DropControl, the platform, or if you have any technical issues. And then we also, DropControl's motto and WiseCon, we're open, pretty much sensor agnostic for the most part. So we also have an open API. We can merge with other software and other tech companies as well. We're currently integrated with 5 different ones at the moment. So what is DropControl? DropControl is a reliable irrigation monitoring and control system. It's able to connect to any sensor, operate wireless valves and pumps, and injection systems throughout an easy to use software system. Diagram on the left-hand side. There's nodes deployed in the field, either the M1, C1, or X1. It is either controlling, so opening and closing a valve, starting and stopping a pump. Then into the field, we could monitor reservoirs, monitor any sensor. Like I said, we're agnostic. For instance, soil moisture, weather stations, pressure transducers, flow meters, you name it. Here's a picture of a pump. Right at the filter station, we do a pump start and stop, followed by reading the flow meter, and then reading pressure before and after the filter to make sure filters are flushing. From there, we also incorporate reservoir and level control based off transducers or float switches. And we also can do groundwater level based on like a well cable or an ultrasonic. And we can also do an OPE or an overall pump efficiency test every time you kick on your pump. Here's a picture of a simple valve out in the field. We tie into a 12-volt DC latching solenoid or 24-volt AC if there's power in the field. Then we also get valve operation feedback. So based off a 10 PSI pressure switch or a transducer in the field. So DropControl is configured of both hardware and software. Our hardware or our nodes are deployed from the C1, the X1, and the M1. The M1 is a monitoring node only. It's just a data logger, collects data information, sends it to the cloud. Then we have the C1, which is a pump filter station controller. Has 10 inputs, 10 outputs. For instance, as an example, if you have multiple filter stations with boosters, you can read start and stop, maybe 3 boosters, couple acid pumps, couple fertigation pumps, read all the flow meters and read transducers as well. And then in the middle is the X1. This is our flagship node. It's a monitoring and control device. Has plug and play expansion cards, which I'll get into. But it's the most unique and the most advanced that we have to offer at the moment. So the RFX1 node, it's extremely flexible. Tell you a little about it. It's a bidirectional node. So it's a data logger and a controller, like I said. Has radio mesh network enabled. We run a 900 megahertz radio, communicates with each node. Has 2 miles line of sight. We run expansion boards, which I'll get into in a bit as well. It is sensor agnostic. We can control pretty much, read any sensor, anything from Centex soil moisture sensors, HSTIs, your Symmetrics flow meters, transducers, you name it again, any actuator. So irrigation pumps, boosters, FERT, gypsum machines. And then we also in the field, we require one cellular gateway. It's just a little cell modem, AT&T or Verizon, and it shoots everything to the cloud where you can pick it up from your phone, tablet, or computer. There's also an 8 gig SD card in the back. So if anything does go down, for instance, an AT&T cell tower goes down, no matter what, the nodes are still collecting data. With this package, you also do get a solar panel and a lithium-ion battery included. So the expansion boards, like I said, they're plug and play, kind of like a Lego. We have pump relays that start and stop the pump, 12 volt DC latching for your 12 volt solenoids, 4 to 20s, analog dry inputs, SDI 12s to read different soil moisture sensors, and then RS-232 and 485 for other sensors. So some of the accessories, which I already got into, weather stations, local weather stations we can tie into, or we also give the grower, every grower gets a free Simis weather station. We're tied into it through an API. Soil moisture sensors, flow meters, we read pH and EC, ground level water, pump control, VFDs, dendrometers, fertigations, pressure, and then you have your latching solenoids that kick on and off the valve. And then last, second segment is going to be our software, which is DropControl. You can go to dropcontrol.com. We also have a mobile app, which is Android and iOS based. DropControl is a software and it is a service. We do have subscription fees. We also do have a free platform, which is WAS, WiseCon Open Service. It's limited. It's not the greatest. It depends on what applications you're using it for, but it possibly might work for you. We hold under DropControl, we hold all the data for life. So you don't have to worry about it. And it is your data. The grower owns the data. And then third, like I talked about earlier, was the API. We have an open API. If you're already working with a different software, we might be able to link up. For instance, we work with Powwow, Montage Frag, On Farm, Swim. There's a ton, Farm at RX. There's a ton of them. But yeah, from there, I believe Daryl a little later is going to get into. You're going to go over, the app. Okay, and take it from there.
So, all right, so I'm Daryl, so I'm marketing and customer experience specialist. And what I'm going to do right now is kind of go over the DropControl web page and the online software. So this is the online irrigation management system. This is the first screen that growers will usually see. We'll have a whole layout of stuff that they're going to be able to view. Like they can view the farm information, their certain block name, which is totally customizable. It's all up to them. What we can see in the field right now, if we're all looking at that map, is we're getting a map from Google Earth Pro. So it's basically a KMZ file that we have to map out different areas. We can do it per variety, increase efficiencies for variable rate irrigations, stuff like that. The map is totally customizable, especially during different soil types. Right here, you can see a map that has all of our nodes in the field. And all of those nodes have a centralized gateway. So if everyone can see my mouse cursor, this one stands out from the others because it has a different icon. What that means with the two prongs here is this node is the cellular gateway for that entire ranch. So we can click on these nodes. You can see, you know, the battery level, if they have good signal, and you can also see what's attached to them. So you can see if one's reading a soil moisture probe or if it's reading a pressure transducer, as well as, you know, what is this controlling or what's it monitoring, stuff like that. And then on the left here, we have, you know, different things that we can look at. We can schedule irrigations. We can look at our weather, our soil moisture, as well as other irrigation aspects like current pressures, you know, flow rates, pressure before and after the filter. We can also see pressure switches that open and close during irrigations. And then we have custom charts, which basically custom charts lets you take any aspect in DropControl and compare it to others. And on that comparison aspect, you can compare it to stuff like we can watch flow, how we've been doing it for the past 2 months during the start of the irrigation season. And we can compare that to how we were running a year ago and kind of compare and contrast through those two. So yeah, this is just the first node layout map that you're going to see that's on the account. So with scheduling, it's fairly simple. We've got a couple different ways you can schedule. You can do it by the end date and time. So I can go on here and, click my calendar button that's right here. I can click the calendar button, enter a time, and then choose a date. Say I want to run for 8 hours, 0 minutes. For a duration, that's totally fine. So you can go end date and time, select the date, or you can do by duration, which is what we have here. Clicked on duration. All we did was click the certain date, click a start time, put in how many hours we want to run, and then this is what's giving you the end date time. And this volume, it's giving you a volumetric out solution basically because we're taking the total acreage that we've entered for that certain block and the flow that we've got. Whatever your dealer, installer, irrigation designer tells you that the flow rate's going to be, we can enter that in, and then DropControl does a calculation to tell you how much you're going to be putting on. Similar to with fertigation, if you want to do a proportional injection, or let's say you just need to put 500 gallons out, it's going to calculate how much is going to go across all of the different blocks if we're going to do proportional injections. With pH control, we can tie into different pH sensors that are actually in the field and be able to take a reading from the line and irrigate to a set point. We also have pre-irrigation time and post-irrigation time where we can clean out the lines before and after. We have the acid injector. We can also create templates and programs. So instead of having to go in every single day and previously like schedule an irrigation every single day, you can go ahead and create a template and a program. The template is what's up top here. That's what we're looking at that says, here are our zones. This is what I want to happen every single day. So we're going to run, and this is all military time, into day 2. So technically, we have a couple different ways to irrigate. So zone 1 right now is irrigating till 4. You can see that this button here is clicked on its mode. So this is called our cascade mode. And what that means is it's going to irrigate directly after zone 1 ends. But if you don't want every single one to, irrigate after the other's done, we have a free option. You can then customize these to run whenever you want. Doesn't matter. This middle button here, let's say 1 through 4 needs to run together. That's how you just run your sets. That's not a problem. You can click this middle button on all 3 of these, and all of the sets would run together. So like I said, the template is creating the actions that's going to happen throughout the day. And what we're doing with the program was that's when we're setting a guideline for it. So you can see here that we have the start date at 8/7 and the end date at 8/20. So you're giving that date, that time span for 13 days, you're telling your irrigations what you want to do throughout the day. That's what we're doing with the program. And it's taking this template's data and applying it to every single day. You also have the option though to skip a day, skip 2 days. If you need to go back in and increase the amount of water that's going on there, we have a percentage modifier, so you can increase the amount of water that's going to get applied up to 30%. You also have alerts and alarms for that. We can make it to where you will get an email notification, or whoever you want to get the email notification at least 12 hours before your irrigation program is going to end. So it'll send you a reminder, oh, hey, my irrigation program is going to end. I got to go back in and I've got to set a new one. Or you can go in, edit, and reactivate the same exact one. Here's a daily view. So we're looking at a lot of irrigation, so kind of pulse irrigating. We're running short shots throughout the day. You can see at the bottom here, we have the irrigation programs and then regular irrigations. What that's basically saying is these blue bars are a program. What's up top is what was scheduled and what was planned to happen throughout the day. What's on the bottom is what actually happened in the field. So it gives you a description of what's actually going on. Another way we do that is also through a manual irrigation. When you're manually irrigating, and as Mark described before, we can read pressure switches on an automatic valve. Those pressure switches will also confirm and back up the fact that the valve is open and the irrigation is actually running. So we've got a couple of different ways to make sure everything's running. We can check by the flow. We can make sure flow's going. Check by pressure switches. We can see the valve is open and closed. And we can see by pressure transducers at the filter station that we've got some pressure and some activity at the filter station. This is a weekly view, so it's all those shots throughout the day. So on the weekly view, I can see, okay, so this is what's happening these days. We also have, like I said, that operation feedback. So you can see the start time and what actually happened at the bottom. We're clicked on the bottom block right now, the bottom blue block. We have a 5-hour irrigation, it looks like. The irrigation type is automatic. Status, it was executed fine. The volumetric difference, so now we can see, so we scheduled it at 0.2217, and what actually happened in the field was 0.20. So we're actually getting a little bit less than what we had calculated. What was the nominal flow or the scheduled flow, which is what the dealer gave us the information about the flow meter, was that we're pushing out 1,200 gallons per minute. But in the field, we actually saw we were pushing out 1,100. So there's a flow difference of about 8.11%. We can also adjust around SoCal Edison and PG&E peak hours. So we can enable those and you'd be able to schedule around peak hours just as you're seeing here. And to go back to my pressure switch monitoring section, those gold bars under here where it says manual irrigation, that's what this is. So the pressure switch is noticing that valve 1 is irrigating, but the monitor section to make sure it's irrigating is also going off. So we can see that we irrigated through here and it was successful. Another thing we can do is look at some flow readings and as well as accumulated volume. So we're looking at the weekly accumulated volume and then the accumulated volume for acre feet throughout the whole season. So we can see that line is slowly increasing. We're totalizing our acre feet as well as we're seeing what's happening for every week that we're irrigating. And those are coinciding with flow. Here we can see pressure throughout the system. So what we're looking at is basically you can see different pressures while your system's running. You can see these drops. Usually if those drops, we can see pound of loss, which is going to directly correlate with flushes. There might also be some anomalies in there. You can look at and see, why did it take so long for me to flush until here, or why was I flushing so much? This is kind of a nice tool that you can use to be able to look at your system and see if there's any improvements that you need or any fixes that you might think you need on the filter station. And then we're going to go into our soil moisture decision-making tool. So right up top here, we're looking at penetration rates from top to bottom. So I can see at 6 inches, 10 inches, all the way to 14 inches. This is just off this one probe. We can see that the durations of the irrigations that we ran for these three look to be fairly shorter because we're not seeing any penetration at that 14-inch depth. But we see a little bit of a longer irrigation here where we've got a little bit less activity and then it's penetrating the soil. I'm guessing it's a longer irrigation, so it was able to hit that depth. And you can kind of see that represented here below. So that we saw that if we got right up to here to our top line, we weren't going to be able to get down to 14. But once we went a little bit past that, the maximum point that we wanted to go to, you can see we get penetration down at the 14th inch. What this middle chart is going to do, this is where we're going to be able to tell you if you're running dry, your soil's dry, your soil's adequate, we're in the green, in the fairway, or if we're overwatering. Technically, it's not always overwatering, but if we saw this line staying stagnant and staying here, we'd know that we might have some ponding going on. This is just another way to get an agronomist point of view from it to see where we're at in the phenological stage of the plant, how much water it should be getting. If they look healthy, we can kind of tailor our irrigations to this soil moisture chart. And you can tell we're doing that by counting these legs. We call them the legs. So we've got an irrigation spike, then it's drinking the water. Usually this leveling out is when it's going through the night. So not much activity, and then it's drinking again for another day, and then another day. So basically taking 3 days until we have to irrigate again to stay within this point. We have a couple different things set for this. So you can see there's a maximum, a critical point, and then a minimum. That minimum is to where we get to the wilting point, which is what we want to definitely stay away from. For certain crops, may need to dry out. But for now, we're going to stay within this area. So we set another critical point to make sure we don't even get close to that. So now we can stay within this range and make sure we're good to go throughout the season. Here's just an example of the soil moisture sensors that are in there. We can tie into pretty much any soil moisture sensors, whether it's in Centec, an AquaCheck probe. We can do a lot of open stuff. Like Mark was saying, we're open. We have an open API. We're sensor agnostic. We come to a lot of ranches where they've always got, some probes already in the ground. So we can always tie into those, no problem. Weather and rain, we can see different weather variables that correlate with ETO, or what it's actually happening with the evapotranspiration in the field. We can also see here, this is a daily view. We can see on the left here, the temperature is really high. It's correlating with relative humidity. Once it goes into the night, though, the temperature is dropping. Relative humidity is staying a little bit higher. We can also see the ET correlated with rainfall down here. So we can see we got a couple days of rain, and then here the ET has really nothing. Another example of our weather for frost protection. So we can set up alerts in DropControl that can alert you when your temperature gets down to a certain area, and then you'll have to go out and kick the pump on if you want to prevent any frost. So we just set a simple alert. You say like at a temperature of 35 degrees, I want a text message, a robocall, or an email sent directly to me so I can go out and I can start my pump. We've even seen ag tech go more towards the autonomous side of irrigations, where we're getting that alert at 35 degrees and then we're sending a signal to the pump and kicking it on. That's stuff that is possible, but that's stuff that has to be done internally, since that is such an autonomous thing to have to go on with irrigation systems. And sometimes it's kind of hard to trust the automation, but it does prove efficient and proves that it'll save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. So here's those alerts that I was talking about. This is how they're kind of popping up. We have the different alarms. So we can see the unexecuted irrigation. So something didn't respond in the field or didn't go through. You can get an email, text message, phone call, robocall. It's just dependent on what you want to do. You can set different alerts for different variables too. So like we were saying earlier about the soil moisture, I can get an alert that I don't want the soil moisture to go below this point right here. So it'll send you an alert that you have to go out, kick your irrigation on, and then make sure you don't get below this critical point. So per variety irrigation is kind of what I was talking about earlier. We've done a lot of projects, especially with some cooperatives that are growers globally, large growers who might have to irrigate per variety or separate non-parels versus parels or versus pollinators in almonds. You can definitely do that. We separate it. We have them separated by valve. That one node can control a couple different valves. One node in our field, technically fully loaded, can control 9 different valves off an X1. That's in the field. At the pump station, we can do about 60 with that C1, which is our larger node, and it has different attachments onto it where it can control a whole bunch of different stuff. But yeah, right here in the field, we can control valves and make sure we are opening and closing valves for different varieties, you know, longer sets on one side, shorter sets on the other, kind of whatever the grower wants to do, it's up to them. So this is just an example of a high frequency irrigation. This guy's name is Tom Rogers. He has about 170 acres of almonds in Chowchilla. He's irrigating 10 times a day, 20 minutes, about 3,000 pounds, averaging. No irrigator, you know, did everything himself. The ponding, there was no ponding, no runoffs, and he was also spraying while he was irrigating. Right below, you can see his irrigation schedule. So that's kind of what that pulse irrigation or high frequency irrigation is going to look like. So the ROI average 1 to 2 years, he saw his increase in yield between 5 and 10%, but the water savings was at the 30% level. He also lost a well the one year that we helped him, and he still was able to save that 30% of water. So that kind of goes to show that running these high frequency irrigations, you know, and basing that off of the soil moisture, you're going to get a more efficient crop and a more efficient use out of your system. Another one we can see is Flores Farms out in Lemoore. So 850 acres of pistachios, irrigating 3 times a day, a little bit less than the last case, but still averaging around 3,000 pounds. In his off year, he actually saw a 38% increase and a 15% water savings goal. He was able to meet that. So some stuff that we've got with funding, we hear a lot of these questions all the time. If are there any incentives, and there definitely are. CDFA, USDA. There are a lot of different programs out there to help get funding for automated irrigation systems. A couple of them right here listed for PG&E and ADR. Automatic demand response. So it's incentive money for basically investing in your automation. You get rebates on the energy bill for the participation in that program. And it's also an investment in the pump and automation, soil plant sensors. It's a fixed number of events, you know, length and occurrence depend on the certain day. We actually had something today go on where demand response was taking place, and we had to adjust the schedule in DropControl so that we could work around that. So they could shut the pumps off and then kick them back on once PG&E gives them the signal that they're good. And then on-bill financing is another thing with PG&E that they have a lot of resources on their webpage. They'll give 0% interest loan for 0% down for 5 years. Then we have another thing that's SWEEP by the CDFA. So it's paying for automation, solar, a lot of flood to drip conversions, a lot of telemetry, so installing soil moisture probes, being able to check off all of these points, so automation, solar, flood to drip, telemetry, that's going to increase your ability to get approved and get awarded those, especially for the diesel conversions to electric horsepower pumps. It's definitely desirable to work through a grant writer. There are a multitude of grant writers that we are only in contact with. There's also a lot of dealers that fill out the applications. So your local irrigation dealer, once SWEEP comes out, give them a call. I'm sure they've got someone they can do it. They can have do it for you, or you give us a call. We can get that worked out for you. We need to match about 25% of the total project to be able to get the entire thing rewarded. So this will also pay for the automation NRCS equip program, county NRCS offices. The NRCS, they're at a lot of different events throughout California. You can go to basically any trade show and they're always going to have usually a booth there. if you need anybody to contact. So when you're walking around, as of right now, I know with this whole coronavirus thing, we're not really moving a whole bunch, but if you can't contact them directly, look for them there. But yes, you'll need to match about 50% of the total project cost, and under development in different counties throughout the Central Valley. So now we're going to move on to our mobile app. I'm going to give a quick little demonstration about what you can see. So I'm going to exit out of this screen really quick, and I'll start to upload my own screen and share it with you guys here in a minute. All right, so right here we have our Fresno State olives. What we can basically see is the ranch map. One second, let me make sure everybody can hear me right now. Everybody can hear me fine. If you could just type in the chat that we're all good to go, I'll make sure that everything's good. Yep, and it looks like we are doing fine. So back to this, we can see the Fresno State account, Olives Reservoir. We're loaded right here on the first page that you're going to be able to view when you go onto the app. If we click on this top area where it says, you know, May 29th is 9:45 was the last time we got this data. 80 degrees, 53% humidity, wind direction, any rainfall. We go to click on that, and now we have a bunch of different sensors or maps that we can kind of look at. That's where it gives you the option for under the analysis tab. And if you can see at the bottom, analysis is the one that's highlighted. We go over back to dashboard. That's where you can go back to that main area. So again, if we wanted to look at sensors, we can click directly on that, or we can click the analysis tab at the bottom. So go back to dashboard. We can see right now where it says running, we have one zone actually running in the field right now. We click on that running zone. We can see which block it is. So it's in the olives. We've got one zone going. We can click this scheduled set. We can see that we are running. The duration, we have it set from about 6 a.m. until 12 a.m. So it's about 18-hour irrigation. The gallons per minute right now, it says 175 in the bottom corner. So in the parentheses, you'll see 175. That is the flow that we originally projected. Like I said earlier, we will spit out a difference. So we'll say, you know, this is actually running 8% more flow than you actually thought there was, or this running 10% lower than you thought. But right next to it is what we're actually seeing in the field right now, 195.3 gallons a minute, with your after filter pressure out of about 32.5. We don't have the before filter pressure, but I'm thinking that's probably around 2 to 3 or 4 pounds of loss. So maybe around that 35 mark before the filter station. So we can click back again. And, you know, let's say, I wanted to see what was going on yesterday or previously. Click that little button below it called Last Irrigations. Now I can kind of look at, okay, so Zone 4 executed, this is what they ran, and this is the last set I ran on the olives, actually. I'm running one today. Let's see what it was last time I ran. So it gives you the date at the top, how long it was ran, so 12-hour irrigation. We were looking at actually 200 gallons a minute for that one with an after filter pressure of about 30.9. All right, and then if we had any alarms or alerts in the field, we'd get them here. Right below that, we have the map. So similar to what I showed you earlier, we can see all the nodes in the field. What I'm looking at right now is I can see some soil moisture stuff, as well as what's going on with irrigating. So I click on this block here, olive scheduled set. It's watering right now. Went over to that detail. That's what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing this current irrigation up top. I'm seeing the soil analysis. Not a whole lot of activity yet, but I'm sure that'll definitely pop back up a little bit more, especially if we had more data loaded. But I'm looking at soil analysis. So we're seeing we're in that fairway, as well as irrigation analysis. So I can see my irrigation blocks that are in blue compared to ET, which are in yellow. If we wanted to change, how much we're looking at here, we can go from 1 week, 3 days, 1 day, any custom day. You can go on the calendar and search variables or areas that you want to look through. I can go back and click 2 weeks. And now I'm able to see a little bit more data. I can also, from here, analyze the soil, but I'll show you how to do that on the soil analysis page. So I click back, click X, okay, and then what's going on here? See zone 4, very wet. So how I was saying earlier, it's going to tell you if you're ponding, or if it's going to tell you if there's something going on in the field. We can see that the soil sensor is actually looking at a lot of overwatering. It could be that you ran the irrigation too long, or it could be that there's a probe problem. It'll usually tell you by that. So that's what that signal is giving us. So in the blue, we can see that we're on that line above, which is why it's telling us we're very wet in the field. Zone 3, everything's going good. Weather station, everything's okay there. The weather station will also give us a heat warning. So once it gets above that like 95 or so degrees or whatever's going on out in the field that we have it set for, it'll tell us there's a heat warning. Right here we have a drop down. So if you click this little orange button that's up top, we have a drop down. We can look right here, see what's currently irrigating. Click that same button. Now we're looking at all the areas we have soil moisture probes in. Click that again. Now we can look at where the weather station is. Click it again, and you can just go back to how it regularly was. One more thing is the button below that. You have this icon, and if you click it, it'll show you all the nodes in the field. Turn it off. We also have a connected devices tab. So the connected devices tab was created solely for the operation of that C1 controller. You can go up to the C1 and without having to have any signal, you don't need any signal to the cloud or anything, you can activate the C1 using Bluetooth, operating multiple zones at the same time without having to really get out of the truck. You can pull up in the truck right next to it, turn on your irrigations or turn on your sets in the pump right there with Bluetooth and just leave it for the day. And then if you want to go back later at night or later in the day, you can go back with Bluetooth, do the same exact thing. Right here in pump system is where we have the option to irrigate. So here in the almonds, I have zone 3 and zone 4. Say if I wanted to run an irrigation on zone 3, just click the little plus button. So I'll go back. There's a little plus button right next to zone 3. You'll click that. Right here we can choose the irrigation type. So if I want to irrigate by the date, irrigate by duration, or by volume. So I need to put a 1/4 inch of water on, or I need to put 1 inch of water on. You can definitely do that. The duration here, we can just use that because that's the most common that we're usually using. Click done. So it knows the exact start date and time. You can come here, click which date you want to irrigate for. Click the start time. Enter in the hours. You can go back and say June 30th, 10:48. Say 1 hour. If we were to hit schedule, do you want to create the irrigation? You can say create or cancel. Back to this analysis page. So we can click on the weather station that we have there right now. That's where we can look at the different variables. So we see we have the temperature range getting closer to that 100, and the other day we got past that. You can also see the rainfall and ET as well as a log. What you can even do is let's say if you took a screenshot of this, you could hit this camera button right here. And you can, up at the top right, you can see there's a camera icon as well as an attachment. You can attach any PDF or anything that you copy from DropControl or an image of DropControl, send it to a certain location, enter in a comment here, and leave it there for other users to look at. That's basically one way we give users the ability to communicate with each other when you're doing several things throughout the platform. Just like last time, you can go to 1 week, go to 2 weeks, and you can see a lot more data. So you can see really how much the temperature actually picked up within the last 2 weeks compared to the relative humidity. You can also hit this drop-down menu, and there you go. You have the temperature, speed, direction. We can also click these buttons off and on. So if I just want to look at temperature, I can see trends there. If I just want to see humidity, I can click off the temperature and just look at that. Going back, we can go ahead and look at that soil moisture probe. Let's take a look from May 1st. Two weeks. From there, it's kind of customizable. You can see what's going on. You can pick any certain date that's out in the field, take a look at it, go to soil moisture analysis and click on the arrow next to it. Now we can really see a lot more stuff that's going on. Fast forwarded it to this May 16th to today. Same thing, if we click the drop-down menu, you can look at all the depths that you have. You also turn off and on stuff. So I can look at 6 inches, and at 10 inches, I've definitely got more moisture there. 14, I've got a little bit less. 18, 22, 26. So we can really see that in the area between 10 inches and 22 inches, the soil's all the water's all kind of staying towards that area, but also draining towards the end. So I pick this back up. You can skip, go back with these little arrows. You can see the 2 weeks prior, 2 weeks before that. Just a lot of different stuff that you can do with this little app. You also have your notifications area. So you could technically go here, click on your notification settings. You can get a bunch of different notifications. You can get them for pressure spikes, low flow alarms. If the irrigation was not sent to the network. So irrigation not programmed, irrigation not started, irrigation alarms. There was a power shortage, like PG&E shut the power off and the pump kicked off. You can definitely get an irrigation notification about that. Pump system switch mode. So if it went, from automating the irrigation into manually irrigating the irrigation, you can do that. Any DropControl news, so any updates that we're going to be able to release to our users, you can get those directly to your phone, as well as the sensor alerts. So you can get direct sensor alerts on your app, as well as to your email, text message, about anything that's going on in the field. So just like I was talking about before, how we saw that sensor staying within that critical point for the soil moisture, you're able to go back and see the different, get different notifications for that certain block or that certain area. All right, let me sit out here. We can also look at the calendar. So we've got a calendar of kind of what was going on. So we can see these little dots on the 1st. We can go ahead and look at all the irrigations that were scheduled then. See on the 4th, we get an irrigation, the 5th, the 21st, and then today. You can also create a new irrigation starting from there. You also have the option to look at some irrigation programs. So let's say that I went in here and we actually had a program set. So we wanted to run our entire set for the entire month. So from May 4th to May 26th, you can go in here and delete the irrigation, or you can edit it. So here we go. We have the test template, the program, start date and time, the end date, percentage modifier, and we want to start on Monday. Pick any day that you want to start the program on, how many days we're going to take between irrigations, and then a notice end. So that you click that notice end, type in your email address, and then you're going to get the notification directly there.